Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Leslie Locklear, and I am so excited to be here with you all today. Sorry, there's a glare on my glasses. I'm trying to get rid of it. So I am so excited to be here with you all today in this virtual webinar, which is such a cool way for me to be able to meet with my Unity family. And I have so much information I want to share. So a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Dr. Leslie Locklear. I'm a member of the Lumbee, Waccamaw, Siouan, and Coharie tribes. And I currently reside in North Carolina, and I work here at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke as the program coordinator for a grant that trains American Indian teachers to teach in American Indian classrooms. So I have been involved with Unity for over 10 years now in various capacities. I went to my first conference many years ago, and the next year served on the executive board for 2 years. Then went off to college, came back as a member. I was chosen for one of the 25 under 25. And the last few years, I've had the honor of serving as a leader for the Today's Native Leaders program. And that was an absolutely amazing experience. So it's really great that I get to come back in this capacity and share a little bit of information with you all. So today I want to talk to you about community planning and project planning and what that looks like to empower you to really implement your own community projects in your community. And so, a little bit about some of the steps I'm going to share with you. There are about 10 project planning steps that I want to really share with you today. And this work came out of a partnership with the Unity Office and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, often called OJJDP. And they created a 10-step plan that we were able to share in different communities across the United States. So Natani and I had the amazing opportunity to lead TNL trainings all the way from Boston to Alaska. And this was a 2-day training where we shared information about this community service planning and what it looked like. So I'm going to try to condense all of that into about 25 minutes and hopefully give you some time at the end to get started on your project planning. So a little bit of information. The first thing that we always talk about is what is project planning. So it's honestly just having a solid plan for a project that you want to implement. And this is going to include a lot of things. You're going to think about the budget. You're going to think about the task. You're going to think about whose responsibility is it to do this. You're going to think about where am I going to hold this event. So all of that is part of project planning. And the way that you ensure you have a good project is to ensure you have a good project plan. The next thing that we really talk about a lot is what is community service. So to Indigenous people, community service is something that we always do. We always serve our community. We always go out and help where we're needed. So to us, community service is very natural. So for those of you that are applying to college or applying to scholarships, you'll see that a lot of them ask about community service and implementing that and what it looks like. So we are very familiar with it, even though we don't always term it community service. So I think of community service is any voluntary work that you do to help your community or a certain group. So of course, for Indigenous people, we do a lot in our own tribal community, and for my urban, they also do a lot not only in their tribal community, but also to serve the urban Native community. So think about community service as that group that you want to serve. So I don't want to overgeneralize, but more often than not, for Indigenous youth, we tend to serve our tribal community. So this process involves 10 steps that you can use to plan your own community service project. And today I'm going to go over those steps and give you a little bit of insight into how to plan and implement your own community service project. And I hope that you take out of this the initiative and the will to kind of start planning your own community service project or implement some of these steps in something you're already planning. So the first thing that we always do is we think about what do we want to address? What in our community do we want to address? So the first step is really thinking about a list of challenges that you have in your tribal community. And this is going to look extremely different for every single tribal community, from the East Coast to the West Coast, North and South. We all have very different challenges. But I wanted to give you a few ideas of things we heard across the nation when we were doing our T&L trainings. We heard about alcoholism, substance abuse, teenage pregnancy, high school dropout, college preparation, bullying, the lack of adequate information as it relates to Native education, culturally relevant teaching. So there were a plethora of things that people wanted to address in their community. So I encourage you to sit down with your group and talk about what are the challenges that we have and what do we want to address. So to give you an example, I'm going to walk through these steps as an example from my community. So in my community in the past few years, we've been hit by two devastating hurricanes that have absolutely demolished the homes of so many people and have really hurt our tribal community, and our people are still recovering from those hurricanes. And one challenge that we have is that a lot of people don't have the basic necessities. So for the sake of this webinar, I'm going to talk about that as a challenge in my community, is that people don't have the basic necessities as it relates to things they've lost due to the hurricanes. So now that we know some of the challenges, or now that we have an identified challenge, the next thing is you want to think of, how am I going to address this? So you want to list possible projects that you could do to address this challenge. So with your group, you can sit down and really brainstorm absolutely anything. Think outside of the box. Don't be hindered in this step. So you want to really think big, think broad, think wide. Think of things that haven't been done in your community. Think of things that would be really transformative, but also make sure that they would address the problem. So, for example, those students that wanted to address bullying, they went to tribal council and they brainstormed a policy change that would change the policies in their school. There were students that wanted to address obesity, so they thought about getting the tax laws changed on their reservation to include an additional sales tax for sodas. There were students that wanted to address domestic violence, so they did a domestic violence walk. To use my example, here's a list of a few possible projects I could do. I could open a donation center. I could collect items for hurricane victims. I could even donate things out of my own closet. So after you have your list down, sit down with your group and decide what project you want to move forward with. Think of something that is feasible and that can happen in a certain time length. So using my example, let's say that my youth council decided to set up donation boxes in the community to collect personal and household necessities for those affected by the hurricane. So that is so we came up with a brainstorm list, and that is the project that we decided to move forward with. So for step three is where you're going to create your description and your objective. This information is going to be used to share with interested people in your community, but also with your youth council. So think of this as your pitch. How am I going to get others involved and interested and excited so that they want to support my project? So you can use your description to publicize your project. So think of social media and flyers. This is where you're going to create that description. So for my description, I would simply say, I plan to collect personal and household necessities that will be donated to hurricane victims. So it's really simple, really sweet, and straight to the point. But your objective is going to be a little bit more specific. This is where you want to share information about not only how you're going to do this, but in what time length and what are your goals for this. So for example, for my objective, I want to make sure that I have something that can be measured so that I know whether or not my plan was successful at all. So I said that my objective would be for my project, I would gather 5 boxes of personal and household donations by the end of the month that would be donated to a hurricane shelter. So you see that my objective is really specific. I know that I'm going to need 5 boxes, which means 5 locations. And in order for me to consider it a success, I want all 5 of those boxes filled by the end of the month, depending on that time length can change. And then I'm going to take those donations to a donation center. So that is really short and sweet, but it gets very specific. And you'll see why towards the end, why you want a specific objective. So now that you have your project and a solid description, you want to begin brainstorming tasks that you have to assign to people that are going to support your project. So this is extremely important. So if I was brainstorming tasks with my group, I know that I need to get the 5 boxes. I need to contact um, the 5 donation centers. I need to drop the boxes off. I need to have someone to pick the boxes up. I need to have a contact at the donation center that we're going to go. And I think that might be all of, oh, I need a list of approved items that can be submitted. I need someone to put this information on social media. If you see, a lot of times when we do project planning as youth, we forget all of the simple steps, but think of everything that needs to be done in order for your project to be a success. So think start to finish. So starting from the very beginning, I know that the first thing I need to do is get a list of approved projects. I don't want to share information about my donation drive unless I know exactly what people can donate. So go ahead and brainstorm a list of those tasks. And once you have a list of those tasks, now it's time to assign those tasks. So you don't want, excuse me, you don't want to be the person in charge of absolutely everything. You want to empower those in your youth council to support you and also to buy into your project. And this may not even be just members of your youth council. This may also be people from tribal council, others in your community. So there are a lot of ways others can get involved, but you want to make sure that the tasks that they are assigned are to their strengths. For example, if I know I have somebody on my team that's really great at graphics, maybe I'm going to assign them the portion of sharing information on social media. If I had somebody on my team who works at the donation center, I'm going to assign them the task of getting the donations to the donation center. So think about all of the strengths you have on your team and who would best fit where. Once you have assigned them, you want to put them in order. So what needs to happen first, second, third, so on and so forth. So go ahead and assign those tasks to people on your youth council or have people sign up and then put them in order, and now you're ready to go. Now that you have your project, you know what your challenges are, you have your tasks, you have them assigned. Now you want to think about something that is often left to the adult, and that is the budget. This information may come from adults supporting your project, but I want to encourage our youth to take charge of a budget when it comes to project planning, because it is something that can truly empower you and make or break your project. So first, we want to consider, what charges will I incur? What are the things that I'm going to have to pay for? So with my personal project of getting things to a donation center, I'm going to have to find 5 boxes. So I'm going to have to buy 5 boxes. I'm going to have gas to get the boxes to the community centers. I'm going to have gas to get the boxes from the centers to the donation center. So think about all of the things that you're going to have to pay for. I had students who wanted to do a march in terms of in honor of domestic violence, and what they did was they thought about, we want to do flyers, we're going to need markers, we want to do t-shirts, we want to provide breakfast. So think of all of those things that you're going to have to pay for. The next thing you want to think about is, how am I going to pay for this? Where's the money going to come from? Some of our youth councils get funding from their tribal council, and I would always encourage you to ask your tribal council. If you know that you're planning a project that is going to be huge and is going to require a lot of money, now we want to start thinking about fundraising. What fundraising works best in our community? When can we start? So think about those things when you're discussing the budget. For example, in our community in Robinson County, We do really well with plate sales. So if I was planning a project and I knew I needed to raise money, then my youth council would then begin talking about maybe we need to do a plate sale, maybe we need to do a raffle, maybe we need to do a special at a powwow. So think about all of the ways that you may need to raise money for your project. The other thing that I want to talk about are donations or in-kind donations. So, for example, you may have people in your community that are willing to give you things in support of your project, and maybe it's not just money. So if I knew I needed 5 boxes and I know that Mr. Timmy works at FedEx and he could technically donate me 5 boxes from FedEx, then that is an in-kind donation. So he didn't give me money, but he gave me something that I now don't have to buy. Think of in-kind donations in terms of people volunteering, people giving you things that you otherwise would have to buy. So that's a little bit about budget planning. So there's 2 parts. So again, you're going to have to budget how much is all of this going to cost, and then where am I going to get the money from? I want you to be creative and don't be intimidated by the money portion of it. I'm currently working with a nonprofit organization, and we are really surprised at the amount of people willing to donate and support Native youth. So please don't be intimidated to just go out and ask in your community to get support for those things. So now that you have thought about your challenge, you've decided on a project, you've discussed the tasks, you've assigned those tasks, and now you have your budget and know what you need to do. The next step is the most exciting part. You're going to put on your project. So whatever it may be, you're going to go ahead and implement that project. So you want to go ahead and carry out your project, but make sure that you pay close attention to your objective and description during this time to make sure you stick to exactly what you said you're going to do. Because I know sometimes things can go a little array, so we want to stick to what we said we were going to do. So go ahead, do the most exciting part of this, and put on your project. Once your project is complete, we want you to have a closeout process. And again, this is something that has often been left to the adults. So the closeout process means you take care of any loose ends. So for example, if you've ever planned a powwow, the closeout process would be, are all of my dancers paid? Are the chairs put up and given back to who they belong to? Are the tables put up? Is the building clean? Have I paid my MC? All of this is part of your closeout process. You're going to have to do this as a part of your project as well. So for my particular project, the closeout process would be, I've already put out my donation boxes and now it's the end of the month. So the closeout, I need to go pick up my donation boxes. I need to review inside all of the donations and make sure they meet the requirements. And then I need to take these donations to the donation center. And if I still have the boxes, I need to recycle those boxes. And so that is my closeout process. Depending on your project, your closeout process may be short or it may be super long, but it is critically important. Another part of the closeout process is that you want to write thank you notes. So write thank you notes to all of those that volunteered their time, talent, and treasure, just as a way to say, you are appreciated. Thank you for helping. And that way they'll know that you appreciated them and will be more willing to help next time. So after you've closed out your project and all of your loose ends are tied up, everybody's paid, everything's back to where it belongs, you want to meet with your group to really evaluate your project. So you want to sit down and have a conversation about what went well, what did not go well. Did we meet our objective? Did I actually collect 5 full boxes of personal and household items to donate by the end of the month? If I didn't, why not? Did I not have a great donation center? Was my information not communicated? If things did go well, what could I change for the next time? Maybe I need more boxes. Maybe I need to add to the amount of donation centers. So sit down with your group and really evaluate what happened and how it went. So the very last step of this process is honestly one of my favorite. As you know, today in Indian country, a lot of the information, excuse me, I have a cold. A lot of the information shared about our Native youth is not always positive. So we want to change this narrative. So the way to do that is to share the positive things that your youth council does. So for example, the last part of this process is you want to share all of that success. So that may mean sharing pictures on social media to talk about your project, writing a short story to share with your local newspaper or paper and social media. All of these things can help get the positive story about what you've done out there. I can't stress enough how important this is. I know it seems very mundane that you're bragging on certain things, but you want to show that your youth are involved and you are taking charge in your community. So, to give you an example of what I would do, let's say that I've done my project, so I've collected my donations, and throughout the process, I took a few pictures. So I'm going to write up a little blurb to talk about my youth council and what we did and how our project was a success. I'm going to share that with the local newspaper. I'm going to share it on social media, and I'm going to share it with tribal council so that they can see all of the things that we've done as a youth council. So again, sometimes we forget as youth that we really have an amazing, empowering story, and we are doing amazing things, and we don't always get to share it. So I want to empower you to share that story. So those are actually the 10 project planning steps, and I'm gonna put some information about them in the description so that you can look back over them. It is honestly the best way to plan a successful project and to really implement something in your community that's going to make a change. Right now, I have about 3 or 4 minutes before you transition to the next part of the virtual webinar, and I'm going to ask you to take this time to work with those that you're with, or maybe even individually, to come up with a list of challenges that you want to address in your community. And I want to empower you to go through these steps and then begin planning a project that is going to truly transform your community and make a change. Thank you so much for listening. And once you have your list of challenges and maybe one you want to address, drop it in the comments so that I can see it and respond. Or if you're already implementing a project in your community, I would love to hear about it. So please drop that in the comments below. And thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful conference.